Hey, English 101. This is the overview for your E4 assignment. So let's get started. If you have gotten ready for your E4 and you've completed the other things, or you skipped to here because you really wanted to start here, that's fine too. But step one is going to be to watch the documentary The 13th in Netflix. It's a Netflix original selection. So that will be the first thing. As you're watching it, I highly, highly, highly suggest you watch it with the remote in your hand so that you can pause it. I would even turn on screen captions. Sometimes it's easier to catch exact wording because for this assignment, for your discussion board, you'll have to have direct quotes from the documentary. And in MLA, when you're direct quoting from a video, it requires a timestamp. It is much easier if you record this information the first time around than it is to kind of go back through the whole 2-hour documentary and try to figure out who said what where. So again, have that remote in your hand, pause it, make note of what was said, who said it, and the time that it occurred, and then keep going. It is required that you watch this whole entire documentary. I will warn you that the first part starts off kind of slow and it's heavy. It's, emotional, and it's something that, isn't comfortable to watch. But then it picks up pretty quickly. By the time we hit, in chronological orders, the 70s, it really rapidly works through the era of mass incarceration and the idea behind the video, which is our major category as we're thinking about E2, right? What is mass incarceration and what does it affect in general on our society? All right, so you've watched the documentary, you've made notes of who said what, you posted in the discussion board, you discussed those quotes with your classmates. So this is the focus of this assignment. It requires you to write a persuasive essay, meaning you're going to have a point and you're going to prove it in response to one quote or one section or one claim from the documentary. So you're going to find something in this documentary that intrigues you, that you agree with or that you disagree with, and focus on that one thing. This documentary covers about 260 years of US history. You cannot cover it all. It's important that you focus on one thing. Again, one claim, one quote, one section, one idea. All right. So persuasive essays are when you try to convince the reader that your point of view is valid. Not that you're right, just that you're not crazy for thinking what you think, right? So we really want to focus on logos, logic in this particular essay. The other ones too, we love ethos, we love pathos, but I think logic is really important when we're talking about subjects that we already know everyone is not going to agree with. That is the nature of being controversial. So I want you to consider it a win in this paper. When someone with an opposing points of view can look at your podcast, can look at your video, can listen to what you've said or read your essay and see you, right, as a credible person, they might not agree with you. They might not change their position, but they should be able to understand why you believe what you believe. That is the key here, to think defensively, right? And to put your head in the context of your audience. All right. So that takes us down, of course, read the entire thing yourself, to our target audience. I always try to point out in these overviews the things that are different, right? So to this point in the class, I've given you specific audiences. We started out with our classmates, then we looked at particular groups. In E4, right, your audience is going to be a specified national publication. You can choose any national publication that you want. It can be an international publication, but you have to identify it the same way we've done before, right underneath the date in your heading information. So I want you to imagine that this podcast that you're creating or this video that you're creating is going to take place and be housed on the website of one of these national publications, whichever one that you choose. So for instance, I could choose to be writing an article for 17 magazine, or choose to be doing a podcast that's going to be promoted by The Atlantic. So whatever your choice is, but I want you to consider who is the viewer or the reader that this publication has a tendency to attract. And that will tell you who your audience is. So our main category here is mass incarceration, right? That's what the documentary is about. But readers of 17 magazine will probably have a different view or be inspired by different content than readers of Men's Health, right? Or, when we're looking at some of these national publications, what happens in parenting when we might be focusing on issues concerning the family and mass incarceration is going to be very different than if we're focusing on Fortune, which is probably going to deal with economic issues in mass incarceration. So I want you to think carefully about where you think your particular composition should be housed, and that's going to be your target audience. Your goal is pretty simple. I want you to inform your audience about what's critical about your topic, keeping in mind, right, what the audience is for that publication. That should tell you what you need to provide as background information and what you don't need to provide, because that audience should probably already know those things. Specify your position on your topic, whatever it is. Again, we're focusing on one quote, one section, or one claim from the documentary. And then convince your audience to take a specific action to address your topic. All of these compositions should at some point have a place where it states, and this is what we should do about it. Tell me how we move forward, in your opinion. This is our longest assignment. So again, in the requirements section, I'm not going to read all of them. I'm just going to highlight what's new, right? So if you're doing this as an essay, it has a minimum of 1,500 words. If you're doing this as a video or a podcast, it has a minimum length of 4 minutes. So these are our largest projects so far. In addition to that, you have to have 2 direct quotes within your composition from the documentary itself, as well as additional sources. So you'll need at least 3 entries on your works cited page. One is going to be for the documentary that you're directly quoting from, and the other 2 are going to be from credible sources that you're using to continue to make your point. So keep that in mind as you move forward. Those are the things that are new about this. This particular assignment, the due date is our regular week 12 due date, right? So just keep in mind that this is our last of our 4 composition assignments before we move into the final third of our semester and start working on our final portfolios. All right, so just like our last assignment, you have choices in E4. You can choose to work together, work alone. Just need to email me if you choose to work in a group. I'll remind you that at least one of your written essay assignments this semester has to be done individually. So if you haven't met that requirement for the class yet, then some of these decisions might already kind of be in line for you. Beyond that, you also have the choice to do this as an essay, a podcast, or a video, just like you did for E3. All right, and that's about it. That's all I have for you, folks. I hope you really enjoy watching the documentary. It is my experience that everyone finds something in here that they gravitate towards. Let that be a light to kind of guide you toward what you might want to do for this project. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to email me.